The forests of Kavar 3 didn't forgive mistakes. Marjorie had learned this within her first week on the colony world, watching a veteran scout lose 3 fingers to a snapvine because he'd moved too quickly, too carelessly. The forest demanded respect, patience, and above all silence, which made it all the more remarkable that she'd agreed to mentor Truce. The young Vulcan moved through the undergrowth with the grace of a falling boulder. His chitinous plates clicked with each step, his breathing holes whistled when he tried to hold his breath, and his tail ancestors preserve hers wept behind him like a radar dish, announcing their position to every predator within a kilometer. Softly, Marjorie whispered, her voice barely a breath. Truce's eye stalk swiveled toward her, bioluminescent patches flickering with embarrassment. In his native language, the colors meant I'm trying, but trying wasn't enough in Kavaris deep forests. Here, the canopy rose 300 meters overhead, and the twilight beneath was filled with things that had perfected hunting over millions of years of evolution, that the Vulcans were new to this world. Their colony ship had arrived 6 months after humanity's end. They'd quickly discovered what the human scouts already knew. Kivar didn't care about your technology, your weapons, or your civilization. In the deep forest, you were prey until you proved otherwise. Marjorie watched Truce crouch beside a cluster of phosphorescent fungi, his hunting implement a traditional Vulcan spear that his ancestors had carried on their homeworld gripped in his primary hands. He was tracking a grounder, a 6-legged herbivore whose meat would feed his family group for a week. The tracks were fresh, the scats still warm, but he was doing everything wrong. She could see it in the way he positioned himself downwind, forgetting that grounders didn't rely on scent alone, in the way he kept his eyes on the tracks instead of the canopy, where snappers waited to drop on distracted prey, in the way he moved with determination, instead of patience. Marjorie said nothing. The Vulcan elders had sent Truce to her with a formal request, translated through their best linguistic AI. Teach him the human way, they'd asked. Your species walks through Kavares forests as if you belong there. We do not understand how. She'd tried to explain. Humans didn't belong in these forests any more than the Vulcans did. Earth's forests were gentle nurseries compared to Kavar's killing grounds. But humanity had learned something over millennia of being both predator and prey, hunter and hunted. They'd learned to listen. Truce moved forward, following the grounder's trail. The young Vulcan had Karashid give him that. He'd volunteered for this hunt despite knowing that 3 Vulcan scouts had died in these same woods last month. Despite knowing that his people's carapace armor, so effective against their homeworld's predators, was like ringing a dinner bell in Kavares forests. Marjorie followed 30 meters behind, her footsteps making no sound on the moss-covered ground. She wore no special equipment, carried no advanced sensors, just a simple knife at her belt and a water container at her hip. Her clothing was earth-toned synthetic fiber, practical and unremarkable. She'd learned to walk like this as a child, hunting deer in Oregon's forests with her grandfather. The forest will teach you, he'd said, if you're quiet enough to hear it. Ahead, Truce froze. His eye stalks extended upward, scanning. The grounder had stopped, hidden somewhere in the thick ferns that carpeted this part of the forest. Marjorie could see it, a dark shape 20 meters ahead, its ears rotating as it tested the air for danger. Truce saw it too. His bioluminescent patches dimmed with excitement, the Vulcan equivalent of a held breath. He began to move, spear raised, too fast. A branch cracked under his foot. The grounder's head snapped up. Marjorie saw Truce's patches flare with frustration as his prey bolted, crashing through the undergrowth with surprising speed. The young Vulcan started to pursue, his instincts overriding his training. That's when Marjorie heard it, the whisper of scales on bark high above. Truce, freeze. Her voice cut through the forest, quiet but absolute. The young Vulcan stopped mid-step, every muscle locking. His training with her had taught him one thing. When Marjorie used that tone, you didn't question, you obeyed. The constrictor dropped from the canopy, its 3-meter length aimed precisely where Truce would have been if he'd taken another step. It hit the ground with a heavy thud, coiled, and immediately began scanning for prey. Its heat-sensing pits opened like flowers, searching. Marjorie stood perfectly still. Truce, to his credit, did the same. The constrictor's head swayed back and forth. It had heard the grounder, had felt the vibrations of Truce's chase. Now it searched for the source. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The serpentine predator's frustration was evident in the way its tail lashed. Then, finding nothing, it slithered back into the undergrowth. Marjorie waited another full minute before moving forward. Truce remained frozen until she touched his shoulder. You saw it? He asked through his translator device, his patches showing the colors of shame. Before it dropped. No, Marjorie admitted. I heard the forest. I don't understand. She gestured around them. The forest went quiet. No insect sounds, no small mammals rustling. The birds stopped calling. Something was wrong, and every creature here knew it except you because you were too loud to hear them warning you. Truce's eye stalks drooped. I have failed your learning. Marjorie began walking, and after a moment, Truce followed. Your people are new to this world. You move through it like conquerors, expecting it to bend to your will. But Kivar doesn't care about your expectations. And humans? Truce asked quietly. We move through it like guests. We listen. We wait. We remember that we're not at the top of the food chain until we prove we deserve to be. They walked in silence for nearly an hour, Truce trying to match Marjorie's quiet footfalls. Gradually, he began to hear what she meant. The distant call of a canopy bird, the rustle of something small in the leaf litter. The forest wasn't silent, it was singing, and he'd been too loud to hear the song. When they found the grounder again, Truce was ready. This time he moved as Marjorie had taught him, patient, aware, listening to the forest's rhythm. When his spear flew, it was true. The creature fell quickly, painlessly. As Truce prepared his kill for transport, Marjorie scanned the forest around them. Other things were watching, they always were. But the forest had accepted them, at least for now. The normal sounds continued. The birds still called. They had permission to pass. Thank you, Truce said, his patches glowing with gratitude. For walking behind me, Marjorie smiled. That's what humans do best. We don't conquer the wilderness, we learn to walk through it until it forgets we're there, until the forest makes room.